So, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to front up straight away to say we are recording this prior to the 15th of November when it will be released, but only a day before, so it's not too far out of being live. But it'll still be live, warts and all. So, welcome, everybody, to the Renny Show. And hello, Jenny.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much. Nice and wrapped up to keep warm. How are you?
Do you know, it has been grey and rainy and miserable, and the sun has I was going to say the sun's come out, but as you can see, it's really low in the sky. And it's chilly.
Yes,
Somebody
absolutely.
said to me the other
Plenty.
somebody said to me, you're at home, you dress very warmly. And I was like, yes, I do. Haven't put the heating on yet in the day because I'm trying not to. So that means I make full use of all my scarves.
Yes, which who needs an excuse, but it's a good excuse. Obviously, whilst we're recording live at the time, we won't be able to respond to your comments if you're watching at the time the show is broadcast at 12 on the 15th of November. So, but please do comment if you're listening. We'd love to carry on the conversation and know what you think about some of the things we end up talking about. So, Jenny, would you like to go first?
I would. My question for you is, how do you navigate the difference between coaching and mentoring in your practice?
Okay. I was going to type that in. Difference.
And the reason I'm asking this is because I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and she said, I'm still not really sure about what the difference between coaching and therapy and mentoring. She said, you see all these terms bandied around on social media, and she said, and I'm not really sure I know the difference. So I was explaining it from my point of view. So I thought it'd be good to ask you your thoughts.
Okay, excellent. Great question, because, as we both know, the coaching sector can be very misunderstood because, there are so many elements to what a coach might choose to do, and it all gets branded as coaching, and then people end up very confused about what that really means. So for me, I would put myself on the purist end of coaching, where I don't believe that I offer mentoring for anybody. However, there's a big but to that. There are times, even in the most purest of coaching, where you're just trying to support the client to work out their own answers. There are times where you might feel it's appropriate, or I might feel it's appropriate to go directive in terms of coaching. So I wouldn't necessarily brand it as mentoring, but I suppose that's the closest thing to that. And that's when, if a thought has occurred to me based on what the client has been saying, and I feel it would be of benefit to share it with them, then I will absolutely share it with them. But I would offer it in such a way as to say, well, look, this thought has occurred to me. I'll share it with you if that's okay. And I'd like to know how it lands with you. Does it resonate? Does it mean nothing? What happens when you hear it, kind of thing. And usually, so far in my experience, it's received very well. People don't take it as a stop telling me what to do. It's very much, they take it in the spirit that it's meant, that I'm just going to offer you this. It's up to you what you do with it. Now, in the coaching that I receive, my coach is very much a coach and mentor. So she will actively make suggestions about how I might want to solve a particular problem. And I suppose that's where I would define the difference between the two, is that, the purist coaching is eliciting from the client what they believe is the answer to what's going on for them. Whereas mentoring is, a suggestion and there's ways of making that suggestion. It can be, it can get anything from do this to what would happen if you did this, but mentoring is more about providing some structure and information for that person to be able to act on. So how does that sit with your thoughts on it?
Yeah, not surprised. Oh, something just fell off my desk.
Oh.
Not surprisingly, very similar. So yes, I think when I'm in coaching, when I'm in my coaching session, I wouldn't mentor unless very specifically there was something, and I tend to go, I have some thoughts, but
Yes.
it's not coaching, it's mentoring.
Yeah.
So if you would like me to what do you think about that? And they'll either go, oh, tell me. I think I'm very selective in the times when I would do that, because often
Absolutely.
people will say, oh, just tell me what to do. And it's like, that isn't coaching.
No.
So actually, I resist that temptation. And I think having trained as a nurse, all those years back in the day, very back in the day, and practiced for many years, we were trained to mentor. We were
Yes.
trained to mentor fellow students. We were trained to give advice
Yes.
to patients. And even then, sometimes that didn't sit well with me, which is because actually it felt like you were telling somebody. So offering suggestions, have you considered X, Y, or Z, and then give them the choice, always seemed a better option to me than just saying, well, I think you should, because I'm not them. So people have to choose, don't they, what fits or what works or they think might work or fit with them.
Absolutely. And that's a really interesting one, actually, when I think back to my time in full-time RAF service, where as a leader, as an officer, there's absolutely an element of what you do that is, you're tasking people to do something, you're telling them what to do. There is a necessity to have that hierarchical structure. However, when I look back at my style of leadership and the way I looked after those that I was in charge of, I had a very coaching style of leadership. It wasn't all about just telling people what to do. When I was trying to support people to reach their potential, it was very much a two-way discussion and about trying to do what was possible to enable them. So it's really interesting to hear you talking about the same sort of thing in nursing, that there's an element of be that mentor and tell them what they need to do, but there's different ways of doing it, and it depends on the person as to how that will land with them. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is. It's fascinating, which I thought that was a nice juicy question to get us going.
That's a stonker to get us going. Thank you. So I guess it's my turn then. All my questions today are a bit topical in one way or another. So the one I'm going to start with is Armistice Day important to you? Obviously, because we've just had Armistice Day over the weekend. And if so, why?
Yes, it is. And it's actually not just important, it's quite emotional for me. So if I wobble, I make no apology. So I think it's important to me for, I think, three main reasons.
Okay.
Firstly, the really simple one is that I know I have people who have served in the armed forces in my family, and therefore I have a very direct a very direct kind of I have experience of the impacts of war on them.
Yes.
And the ongoing trauma of that. So I think there's a very personal connection. Secondly, I think because we have, and loosely, you know, we have been, our country has, broadly speaking, been at peace for many years. It
Yeah.
is really easy to forget
Yes.
why we have the freedom that we have, and how different it might have been if it hadn't been for the sacrifice, in my opinion, the unacceptably high sacrifice
Yeah.
of all of those young men and women and horses. You know, all of those people who died so that we could live in freedom. Um, we could have a whole show on this, couldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And and I also, why it's important for me is to continue having those conversations about, you know, the First World War, the Great War, was to be the war that ended all wars.
Yeah.
Um, and it isn't,
Yeah. It didn't.
which breaks my heart every day. Because you know, why haven't we learned that it's never a solution. Um, and I understand the difference between, you know, one man's, you know, freedom fight is another man's terrorist. All of
Yeah.
the it's complicated, um, but it just seems to me that if we don't keep having these conversations,
Yeah.
and we so
Absolutely.
often focus, it feels like um, we have this ego-driven need to win, that
Mm.
completely disregards humanity. Um, and there were many sort of poignant things posted on, you know, social media over the weekend, um, and honouring, you know, honouring people who, to be honest, I know, you know, there are the people who say, well, they joined the army, you know, they, or the navy or the air force, you know, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. Um, but you know, my cousin, cousins, you know, were young men when they
Yeah.
joined. And actually, they joined in peacetime. So although in theory you, um, that you might be asked to
Yes.
fight for your country, that it's a theory at that point. So it's only when it actually happens that you think, oh, and it's scary. Nobody wants to die on a battlefield, do they?
No.
It's just hideous. Um, so there's that. I think there's that whole conversation, the ongoing conversation about um, I just firmly believe with every fibre of my being that there has to be another way, other
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
and that war, while never easy, seems to be, oh, well, let's just fight it out. It's like, stop it. Just stop it. And, you know, just stop it. It doesn't work. We've proved so many times
Yeah.
it doesn't work. All it does, it does far more harm than good, even though, you know, so I think having the conversations, and then finally it's it's the passing down, that to other generations, so that
Yeah.
hopefully they can learn something and do it differently, um, so that we can, you know, we can try and help people learn from, um, and I think people who haven't experienced it can't quite imagine it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it it needs to be, it's different from when it's on the telly, isn't it? You can turn the telly off.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and I'd agree with all your reasons why remembrance is important. And you know, for us as a family, me being ex-Air Force, still a reservist, my husband being in the Air Force, my brother served many years in the Air Force. Um, you know, it's always been, you know, we were brought up to believe that remembrance was important, and we are doing the same with our children. You know, since they were little tots, we've always taken them to remembrance services every year. now they're old enough, they take part themselves with the scouting movement, which they did this weekend. And I think it's really important to pass the message on to the future generations that come behind us, because it is too easy to forget. We hear the hashtag as it is these days, but the phrase "lest we forget," we hear it every year. But how often do we really think about what that actually means? It's a stark reminder of the damage that is done by war, and that if at all possible, we need to try and not repeat the things that have gone on in the past. As you alluded to, the intolerably high price that was paid. But I think also, as a nation, remembrance is something that is so widely respected and honoured. It really feels like a national coming together. I know not everybody wants to observe remembrance, and not everybody wants to observe it in the same way, and that's absolutely fine. But I feel it's one of those occasions where, as a nation, it is really important that we come together and remember those who fell, whether they, male, female, British, international, animals, the whole thing. Yeah, absolutely everyone. And again, military or civilian, both apply. I just feel really strongly that we absolutely must keep educating the future generations about what's gone before, because otherwise, is this not just going to carry on? We perpetuate the same problems unless we try and do something about it. So I think it's a really important time of the year to not only remember, but to also educate and ensure that the message isn't lost.
Absolutely. And I think over the years, when you read stories of, the glory, young boys of 15, I've been, my dad and I went on to the sort of one of the battlefield tours in in Belgium, and I mean they're still finding bombs and things, and looking at the going to the graves of this 15-year-old boy who 15, I mean, he was a child, and he thought A, he was doing something honorable, B, he was doing something courageous, which he was, and I suspect that he never in a million years thought he wouldn't come back. And those, when you stand under the Menin Gate with all of those names of people who were never found, who were never, it just the enormity of the scale of it, it is huge. And I think it's those kind of things, those real stories that will enable young people to ask questions. And we want them to ask questions, don't we? We want them to to challenge and say, what were you thinking?
Why? Have their own opinions.
Why could we do, why couldn't we do it differently? Why couldn't we do? So I think, every generation plays its part, doesn't it, in educating and keeping those memories of people who were lost alive.
Absolutely. Funnily enough, we're on the same page again, Jenny.
People, and I can't, this is a really good opportunity to say that we are absolutely, we stick to our ethos, which is both Rachel and I we write our questions separately. We absolutely have no idea what the other person is going to ask. So it might sound like we know, but we honestly,
we really don't.
We really don't. And if you want to, we always invite people, don't we? If you want to send us some questions, either you can send them to me or you can send them to Rach, and we still won't know until the moment they're asked what they're going to be. And that's one of the joys of doing the Renny Show. One of the many.
Absolutely. That's why we keep doing it, because it's just brilliant. Okay, so your turn for a question.
My turn. Yeah. Yes. So my next question is, how often do you use your intuition?
Ooh. Okay, I'm just going to type that in and get it up on the screen. Oh, there we go. There we are. How often do you use your intuition? Goodness. I'd say fairly often. I think it definitely comes into play with coaching clients. Because, you know, when those moments when you get a real sense of, you know, there's something behind what you're saying, there's more to this, you know, and you need to kind of help them dig a little bit deeper. But I think also I feel like I've used it a lot lately with my eldest daughter, actually. You know, we are very close, we have a great relationship, we talk about everything, and perhaps that's why, but I just know if something's not quite right. I might not know what it is, but I trust my instincts and my intuition on that, and then use that to start whatever conversation is necessary to try and make a difference. So yeah, I think it's something I probably naturally do quite a lot, and I'm guessing it might be quite similar for you as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I used to think, you know, I think my natural preference is to trust my gut.
Yeah.
Because they will say, don't you, your gut is your second brain, very sensitive.
Oh, and that's another fascinating topic. Yeah.
Yes. And as somebody who worked in gastroenterology with guts, so I can absolutely vouch for that. And you just have to, I always think, if I'm looking for truth, you can often pick it up, can't you, in sayings. So you know, if you think about when you're nervous or excited, we talk about having butterflies in our tummy. So if that ain't gut related, that's your gut, isn't it? Keeping you safe. So yes, and I think over time I probably was one of the many people who were conditioned to not listen.
Right.
And so on the occasions where I would have, doesn't happen very often, but I would have a gut reaction to somebody or something. And I might not know, as you said, I might not know the details, but I'd just go, this is I'm not comfortable with it. And I'd ignore it and live to regret it.
Yeah, ignore at your peril. Yeah.
So yes, come a cropper. So it took me a few goes of that, because they say, don't you, often repeat behavior. The universe sends you things until you learn. So I ignored my gut feeling and my intuition a few times. And then eventually I was like, do you know, every time I do that, I'm proved wrong.
Yeah, there's a pattern.
So actually, there is a pattern. I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to stop ignoring my gut.
Yeah.
And I'm going to listen. And I'm going to listen all the time, not just when it's a glaring kind of warning, but also when it's a kind of more gentle. So it's a kind of daily practice of tuning in, a way of being, I guess. So yes.
Love that.
And yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I am going to move on to my next question. It's another topical one because it's anti-bullying week this week. So if it's not too personal a question, Yeah, odd socks. Have you ever been bullied?
Once I have. Once as a small child.
Okay.
I was about 7. Um, I loved going to school, and for some random reason, isn't it funny? I can remember the boys' names, um, which I probably won't share here,
Yeah.
but I can remember their names
Yeah.
very specifically. And they would do that thing where I was about, say, 6 or 7. We'd be walking home from school and they'd bump into me and they'd tip all my books out of my satchel and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, sorry." All of that kind. So, bit of name calling, doing that thing. It was insidious, and I didn't know what to do with it,
Yeah.
because it was a new experience for me. It wasn't something I was used to, um, and so I stopped wanting to go to school, and I loved school. I've always loved
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And in the end, my dad kind of said to me, "What's going on?" And um, told him, and he said, well, he said, "We need to put a stop to that. How might you do that?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." Because it was another time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to preface that. Um, Violence is never the way. And he said, the thing about bullies is that really they're cowards.
Yeah.
And he said, what they need you to do is to stand up to them and face them. And he said, be really clear and really strong. And I said, how do I do that? And he said, you tell them to stop. And he said, and if you don't, you punch them. That's not advice I would give to anybody
Yeah.
nowadays, but he said that's what you do.
Yeah.
um and I'm ashamed. No, I'm not ashamed. I did it. I
Yeah.
asked them to stop. They didn't. And this one of the perpetrators had glasses on, so I removed his glasses and I smacked him.
Oh,
And
Jenny.
he started to cry,
Oh
and he
no.
said, I'm going to tell my mum. And I said, I'll come with you and I'll tell her why I hit you, and then we'll see, shall we? um which was very forceful, wasn't it? Very unlike, very out of character for me.
Yeah.
I was quite a sociable, gentle kind of child. um um and so we went he I followed him home, and I
Yeah.
told his mum what he'd been doing, and of course she was horrified.
Yeah.
And the upshot of that was that the captain of the football team, whose name I also remember, walked me home for a week
Oh,
to make sure that they
okay.
didn't do it again. And
Fantastic.
2 weeks later, said bullies asked me if I would join their gang, which I politely declined.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the bigger the bigger learning is not, don't hit people. Then
Yeah.
violence is never
Absolutely.
the answer. Um, but what I learned is about standing up for myself,
Yeah.
and being really sure, um, and challenge. And I think it's a thing about leaders, isn't it? Is challenging bullying behaviour. As an adult, I would say what I'd like to do now is understand what's driving that behaviour.
Yeah.
Where is the need for that bullying behaviour coming from?
Yeah.
Um, but definitely to challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that for me, I think, is the most important message about anti-bullying week is to challenge, and as we've said, violence isn't the answer. However, like you
No,
said, it was a
it
different
was
time,
many.
but
It was many,
irrespective,
many.
yeah, it was a long time ago, but irrespective of that, um whatever means you used, you stood up to that bully, despite that not actually being a natural part of your
Yeah,
personality, perhaps.
yeah,
Which I think, unfortunately, there are so many people who really struggle to do that because they're perhaps of a more gentle personality. But then, I've seen examples of quite forthright people being bullied, you know, in the workplace. And I think when it's in a workplace, when it's among adults, it's even more insidious, isn't it? It's really, there's something evil about it, because they ought to know better. You know, they're an adult and they must know how their actions are. But then they don't.
I wonder, yeah, I wonder if it's also, you know, it can be difficult if men are being bullied, because
Yeah,
they think that they shouldn't, you know, that they shouldn't be, they should be able to cope with it. And I've
yeah,
certainly worked with a few men who have been you know, bullied, and there's a shame, there's a whole shame piece
it's
attached to.
emasculation, isn't it? Or quite often
Yes,
seen as,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think it you know, it can be quite complicated.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and again, rather like your, you know, your previous question, you why haven't we learned? You know,
Yeah,
or why are we still talking about? Why are we still having to talk
yeah,
about bullying? Because we know it's mean.
yeah,
It's mean.
absolutely. And even today, lots of the policies and processes that are in place to try and deal with it, or give people a means of coming forward and seeking some kind of resolution, don't quite often don't seem to be fit for purpose, and they don't get the justice they deserve, or they're just not confident enough to come forward in the first place. So there's definitely a lot to be done, I think, in the way it's dealt with. But I think one of the biggest things, you know, as we've kind of already said, is about standing up. So if the person being bullied isn't confident enough to stand up for themselves, if you're a bystander, stand up for them. You know, step in and help them to do what's required
Call it
to
out.
try and make that situation come to an end. You know, call out the bully, which they don't like, as you discovered when you were 7.
I also think there is a trend that a bit like people overuse the word flu and
Yeah,
overuse the word burnout. I think there is also a danger that people, if if behavior has been called out, then people say, oh, I was bullied because. So I think, again, I think this all comes down to really clear communication,
yeah,
respectful, clear communication, where you're having the conversation with the right person,
yeah,
and that you are having it in a way that is respectful but clear.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, right, it's your turn again.
I'm now going to completely change the vibe.
Go for it.
Because I was talking to my mum earlier, and my sister is very organized for Christmas. Um, unlike me, who hasn't even thought about it. But it raised the question. We have an ongoing debate in our family
Okay.
about bread sauce.
Oh, okay.
So obviously bread sauce is a traditional accompaniment to turkey, the whole
Yeah.
Christmas dinner thing. So my question, Rachel, is in your house or for you, is bread sauce yay or nay?
Oh, okay. I'll just type that in so that it comes up on the screen. I
I
have to be
told you.
honest. And I love that your last question is related to Christmas, because so is mine. Oh, great minds. So bread sauce is something I've hardly ever had in my life. It's not something I remember having growing up. So it's not been something that's carried forward into adult life either, because I didn't really have it growing up. And I don't think Darren really did either. I mean, you know, I grew up in Hampshire. He grew up in South Yorkshire. You know, and we're both from families that love a good roast dinner, love a Christmas dinner, you know, all very traditional when it comes to those sorts of things. But neither of our families are bread sauce families. So it's a nay, but only because it's not a nay because we don't like it. It's a nay because we just I'm not even sure if I know what it tastes like.
It's probably a A, eh? A
Yeah,
yay,
it's somewhere in the
nay, or a
middle. It's
A?
maybe we should give it a go.
Oh,
No?
well,
Oh,
it obviously it is a part of our family Christmas dinner. My grandma, um, at Cheshire based,
yeah.
my grandma used to make it, traditionally with the whole soap. So it's like it's it's yes, and I'm trying to think how to describe it in a way that is not going to give you heart failure. And then of course there are packet bread sauces, so you buy it in a
Yeah.
packet and then you stir milk in it and it goes gloopy. It's and if you make it properly, it's breadcrumbs and spices, and and it's a bit like it's a kind of a stuffing, a sort of sloppy
Okay.
stuffing-ish, maybe. Can
Okay.
you tell what my answer would be?
I
Um,
I think it's a it's a swift nay in your household.
well, no, the thing is, my mum loves it, and the
Right.
rest of us don't. So
Oh,
it's that thing about, so for many years when I hosted Christmas, as a family, when my children were
yeah.
little, I used to have to make bread sauce, for my mother.
Yeah.
Um, and she used to love the fact that I'd made it. But it is that thing. Nobody else eats it. So
No.
I think you and Darren, I think your girls have, I think they've won there, because I
Yeah, they
don't
dodged the
think,
bullet.
yeah, I definitely dodged a bullet. I don't think there is any need to sully a Christmas dinner with bread sauce, but I know that those people who love it would absolutely say Christmas isn't Christmas
Oh,
without bread
completely.
sauce, which
Yeah,
is what my mother says.
yeah. So if you're one of those people watching and you love bread sauce, tell us why. What's so great about bread sauce? Tell us
Yeah.
why we should like it. Um,
Share your recipe, or do you use a
yeah,
packet?
yeah, absolutely.
No
And
judgment here, by the way.
I might actually have to try it sometime. I'm really not sure if I ever have. I don't really know. But there, okay. So I'm going to move on to my final question, which hilariously is also Christmas related. Although I think I know the answer to it based on your build up to your Christmas question. But we'll go full steam ahead anyway. So my question is: have you started shopping for the big C next month?
Well, I have, because I do that thing that women probably of a certain age do. I love buying presents. I love the
Yeah,
whole thing. And what I tend to do is, I probably do Christmas shopping all the year round, because if
yeah,
I'm out and about, and I see something and I think, oh, that would just be the very thing,
yes.
I buy it, I put it somewhere safe. And then when it
Great
comes
idea.
to this time of year, I can't remember where I've put it. And so quite often I have to buy them again, something else or something similar, because
Yeah.
I can't find where I've done, because I've put it so safe, I can't
Uh-oh.
remember where I've put it. So the answer is yes, I have started in a small way,
Okay.
um, um, a sort of informal. I've made an informal start.
Okay.
How
Well,
about
I
you?
must admit, I haven't really done it this year, but some years I have got a few bits by now because I've, like you, been out, seen things, or thought, oh, that would be great, and you get it. I haven't actually done that this year, but what I have done, I saw a really good deal for Christmas pajamas. You know, the family matching ones,
Oh
and we
yes.
we do a Christmas Eve box, and it's always got pajamas in it and a film and hot chocolate and those sorts of things. And bless her, the youngest still believes that Santa actually provides this Christmas Eve box.
Which of course he does.
He absolutely does. So said pajamas have had to be hidden so that they're not found. And I have also made my Christmas cake a couple of weeks ago, because I figured that's, it's something I like to make.
Stir Up Sunday is next weekend, isn't it? I think.
Oh, what's that?
Stir Up Sunday. Stir Up Sunday is the day when you traditionally make your Christmas puddings and your Christmas
Ah,
cakes.
right.
And
Okay.
I will, yes. Um, so I think it's next weekend officially, but you can
Okay.
make your Christmas
Well,
cake anytime, can't you?
well, and that's the thing. I like to make it. I mean, ideally, I'd have made it a bit sooner than I did. I only made it a couple of weeks ago, but I might use Stir Up Sunday then to feed my cake again before putting the marzipan and icing on, because it's got to. I mean, I could leave the icing, to be honest. I'm not fussed about icing. Marzipan is an absolute must. Yeah, but marzipan, yeah, you kind of need icing on the top to make it look a bit nicer. But yes, I shall use Stir It Up Sunday to do that.
Or you could just do a wreath of you could glaze your cake and then just do a wreath of marzipan fruits, so it would look very
Mm,
Christmassy without having to use
mm.
icing.
Now there's a thought, although I have bought the
Just
icing
saying.
now. Food for thought, though, pardon the pun. Food for thought.
Exactly.
So if you're watching and you make a Christmas cake, again, let us know, do you like marzipan and icing on it, or do you just prefer the cake by itself? And again, if you've got any good recipes, let us know. Might use your recipe for next year. So that's brought us to the end of today's show. So thank you very much if you've tuned in and listened. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time. And is it me or is there an echo? We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. And the theme of the show will be people pleasing. So that will be an interesting one. Jenny and I will be separately thinking of our questions in advance to surprise each other with on the theme of people pleasing. So we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time, which will be the 29th of November. And once again, Jenny, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, do you know, I always feel so energized when we've done this show. I've had a busy
Me
day,
too.
and I was a bit tired, and then we do this show, and I leave feeling full of the joys of autumn,
Great.
and full of positive energy and smiles.
Yeah,
So thank you,
absolutely.
Rach. It's always a joy, and thank
Absolutely.
you to people who are listening live-ish, on replay, and catching up. We really appreciate you, and your your time. So thank
Yes,
you. And your views. Send us your questions. If there's anything, if there's a theme that you want us to talk about, then let us know, because we can add that in. We'll be doing some planning later. So
yes,
let us know. And we're always delighted to include what matters to you.
absolutely. And on that note, thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Bye.